Hello class, and today we're doing part 3 of magnetism. For this part, we're going to look into methods of how to turn objects into magnets and how to turn magnets into normal objects. So let's start. So magnetization means turning objects into magnets or giving magnetism into an object. And we're going to look at several ways of doing this. The first method is what we call the stroking method. Basically, you take an unmagnetized steel bar and then stroke it several times using a permanent magnet with the same pole. What's going to happen? The steel bar will become a permanent magnet. The pole produced at the end of the steel bar where the stroke finishes is the opposite to the stroking pole used. So let's say you are doing this motion and this end is the first end that you touch when you are doing this motion. The first end that you touch will be the same pole as the magnet, as the pole that is touching, and then the other end will be the opposite pole. So if you use a south pole instead, so this end will become a south pole and this end will become a north pole. The second method is by using electricity, or to be specific, by using direct current. So direct current is a type of current that you will learn in future topics. So you take a steel or iron bar, and then what you're going to do is you're going to wrap the bar or the rod with a coil of insulated copper wire. This coil is called a solenoid. So very important, this word here, you'll encounter this word a lot in this topic and also in the next few topics. So a coil of wire is basically called a solenoid. So make sure you know what this word means. So you take the iron bar or iron rod and then wrap it around with wire, connect the wire to a battery and pass a current through the wire, so through the solenoid. After a while, the bar or rod will become magnetized. So when we use electricity to produce a magnet or to give something magnetic properties, this magnet is called an electromagnet because it's a magnet that is produced using electricity. So this picture here is an example of how you can do it in real life. Now, very important, once you make a magnet, you have to figure out which end is the North Pole and which end is the South Pole. So for an electromagnet, that means the magnet that we created using method 2, we can use a simple method called the right hand thumb rule. So basically, you take your right hand, which is this hand here, so the thumb will point where is the North Pole, and then your four fingers, these four fingers, you align them to the direction of the current. So let's use the example at the bottom here. First, you align your four fingers to the direction of the current. So like this one here, you wrap them up like that. And then wherever your thumb points to, that is the North Pole. So you can see the North Pole is here, and then the opposite side is the South Pole. Let's do this second example here and check that this is the North Pole and at the bottom here is the South Pole. So here is a bad drawing of your thumb, and your thumb should look something like this. You will see that the current is pointing in that direction, and so your thumb should also follow that. And then wherever your thumb is pointing to, that is the north. So you can see the thumb is pointing upwards, so the north is up here, and therefore the south is down here. So this is south, this is north. Another method of figuring out which end is the North Pole and the South Pole is just by looking at the ends of the electromagnets. So let's say you have, this is the electromagnet here, and you are looking at it from the end. So your eye is looking at the end there, not like this, but like this, okay? And if the direction of the current is clockwise at that end, that means it's a south pole. If the direction is anti-clockwise, that means that is the north pole. So you can easily remember this with these two drawings here. So that this is the south pole. So clockwise south pole, another drawing here. Anti-clockwise is north pole. Now let's talk about demagnetization. So demagnetization means removing magnetic properties from a magnet or removing magnetism from a magnet so that it becomes a normal object. So there are several ways of doing this. Number one is heating. Number two is hammering. So heating up a magnet will make it lose its magnetism. That's why we do not advise you to keep your magnets in a very hot place, because the magnet will become weaker and weaker and eventually will lose its magnetism. Number two is hammering. So if you exert a very strong force to a magnet, that will cause the domains to lose their alignment, and therefore that will cause the magnet to lose its magnetism as well. So be careful when you're handling magnets. If you drop a magnet to the floor or whack a magnet with a strong force, that magnet will eventually lose its magnetism. The third way of demagnetizing a magnet is by using electricity, but this time we are using a different type of current, which is called the alternating current. So don't worry about this for the time being. We will look at this in the future. So this is the most effective method of demagnetization. This happens very quickly. So what you do is you place a magnet inside a solenoid. So remember, a solenoid is just a coil of wire connected to an alternating current supply. You put the magnet in, turn the current on, and then slowly take the magnet out without switching off the current. And then eventually the magnet will lose its magnetism. It becomes a unmagnetized object. So why does this happen? That's because, if you know, alternating current has current that varies. So alternating current has current that changes all the time. Sometimes it flows forward, sometimes it flows backwards, sometimes it's bigger, sometimes it's smaller, and this will cause the domains in the magnet to lose their alignment. So to summarize, what are the things that you need to take away from this video lesson? Make sure you know the two methods for magnetization. The first one is using the stroking method, and the second one is using direct current, or otherwise known as the electrical method. And then make sure you are able to figure out the poles of a magnet by using the right hand thumb rule or by using this method here. But the one that is most easiest that I recommend is you use your right hand thumb rule. And lastly, you need to be able to remember the three methods for demagnetization. The first is heating, the second is hammering, the last one is using alternating current. For part 4, we're going to look at something that's called magnetic fields.